The cup tilted before she even realized it. A thin stream of coffee ran down her wrist, splashed across the glossy art print, and spread in a brown bloom that bled into the pale canvas face of a woman worth $800. The sound in the store shifted. Register beeps faded. Footsteps paused. Lena Moore froze. The air smelled of espresso and embarrassment. Across the counter, the art critic's expression sharpened like a blade-catching light. "Brilliant," he said dryly, holding the ruined print between two gloved fingers. "A masterpiece of retail clumsiness." A few people laughed, softly, the way polite people do when they know they shouldn't. Lena took the stained print back with trembling hands. "I'll replace it, sir," she murmured, already knowing she couldn't afford to. He leaned closer. "I doubt you'd know a real painting if it stared you in the face." The words landed like dust on her skin, light but suffocating. Lena set the print aside and reached for paper towels, her movements precise and steady, as if control could rebuild dignity. Her coworker Maya glanced over from the next register, eyes wide with sympathy but unable to step in. The critic turned away, bored already, adjusting the scarf at his throat as he joined a cluster of gallery donors. The manager hurried over, all smiles for the guests and none for her. "Just clean it up quietly, Lena," he whispered through clenched teeth. "We can't have accidents during the event. Quietly, always quietly." Lena knelt to wipe the floor. The tiles reflected the white ceiling lights, cold, exact, indifferent. Her knees ached through the thin fabric of her uniform. She remembered kneeling once before, years ago, on the floor of a small studio filled with natural light, a place that smelled of turpentine and hope. She'd been 20 then, a student, with a scholarship and a dream to paint portraits that made people feel seen. Her mother's illness had come suddenly. The tuition money had gone to hospital bills. By the time Lena returned to the world had already moved on. Now she was 47, ringing up scented candles and picture frames. The crowd drifted toward the attached gallery for the charity auction. The event banner read, "Art for a Better Tomorrow." Lena stood behind her register, straightening stacks of prints, Van Gogh, Monet, Klimt, all the artists whose names once filled her notebooks. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the glass display. A woman faded around the edges. Maya approached as the lights dimmed for the presentation. "Hey," she whispered. "Don't let that man get to you. He talks down to everyone." Lena smiled faintly. "He's right, though. I don't belong here." But her voice lacked bitterness. It carried a weary peace, like someone who had already accepted invisibility as part of her uniform. As the last customers left, she began closing her register. The coffee-stained print lay on the counter, the face of the painted woman now obscured by an ugly brown shape that looked, in a certain light, almost like a shadowed wing. Lena traced the outline with her fingertip. Something stirred, a quiet pulse, familiar yet long dormant. When the store lights dimmed for cleaning, she didn't clock out immediately. Instead, she went to the small art supply corner near the children's section. The leftover acrylics were cheap, the brushes stiff, but they would do. She spread the ruined print on the counter under a soft desk lamp. The coffee stain glowed faintly amber. Her hand hovered above it, then moved with hesitant grace. A stroke here, a blur there, color returning to a life she had once known. The rhythm felt natural again, like breathing. Outside, the last shoppers passed by without looking in. Inside, under a single warm light, the cashier no one noticed began to paint. By morning, the painting was dry. Lena hadn't meant to finish it. She only wanted to fix the damage. But when she stepped back, the ruined print had transformed into something entirely new. The coffee stain had become a sweep of bronze light around the woman's face. Her features, softly redrawn, looked alive, caught between weariness and quiet defiance. There was warmth in the eyes, the kind that comes only from someone who's known loss and kept walking. Lena studied it under the store's pale morning lights. It wasn't perfect, not by gallery standards, but it was honest. She placed it carefully in the returns pile, intending to hide it before the manager saw. She didn't know that later. That afternoon, an assistant from the gallery would come to collect unsorted prints for the charity display, nor that her repaired piece, unlabeled, unsigned, would be taken along with the others. 2 days later, as Lena rang up scarves and candles, Maya came running across the floor, breathless. "Lena," she whispered, grabbing her arm, "you need to see this." They crossed into the gallery, now bright with evening lights and murmuring guests. The exhibit featured works by local painters, soft abstracts, portraits, landscapes. But at the far end, under a golden spotlight, hung her painting. The tag beneath it simply read, "Anonymous donation." Lena stopped breathing. The brushstrokes she'd made in near silence now glowed as if they'd been waiting for this light. The face looked out from the canvas with steady calm, the same calm she'd worn her whole life, misunderstood as meekness. And in front of it stood the critic. Victor Hensley, perfectly dressed as always, stood motionless, arms folded, his brow furrowed not in disdain but disbelief. "This piece," he was saying to the small circle of patrons around him, "there's something painfully human here. The texture, the restraint, it's lived experience." Someone asked who the artist was. He frowned. "No one knows. But whoever they are, they've captured something real." Lena's hands trembled. She stepped back, half wishing to disappear, half wanting to speak. Maya squeezed her hand gently. "You should tell them." "I can't," Lena whispered. "They'd laugh." "They already did once," Maya said softly. "And look who's speechless now." The room hushed as Victor turned, as if sensing something behind him. His gaze met Lena's. Recognition flickered, then disbelief, then shame. "You?" he said quietly. Lena nodded. "I spilled coffee on that print." He blinked. "You painted over it?" "I didn't mean to. I just didn't like seeing something ruined." For a moment, there was only the faint hum of the gallery lights and the shuffle of guests turning toward them. Then Victor exhaled, a long, heavy breath. "You have more talent in your hands than most who call themselves artists," he said, voice subdued. Lena didn't smile. She only looked at the painting, the woman's eyes reflecting the crowd's golden light. "I just painted what I know," she said. "People who keep standing, even when no one's looking." The patrons applauded softly, the sound restrained but genuine. Victor looked down, humbled, the weight of his earlier words hanging uncomfortably in the air. He didn't offer excuses. He simply nodded once, slowly, as though he had learned something that language couldn't fix. Later, when the gallery emptied, Lena remained. Her painting still hung in its pool of light. She stood beside it, her reflection overlapping faintly in the glass frame, Cashier's uniform and all. Outside, snow had begun to fall, catching the lamplight in soft halos. Through the window, her image blurred into the painted figure, two versions of the same woman, one who worked quietly among price tags and scanners, and one who had finally been seen. She locked up the register that night with steady hands. On her way out, she passed by the gallery again. The lights were dim, but her painting still glowed faintly in the dark, as if refusing to fade. And for the first time in years, Lena walked home, not as someone invisible, but as an artist who had simply stopped asking for permission to exist.